Hey, Truth Seekers, welcome back. Zach here. Today's April 2nd, 2016. Tomorrow, April 3rd, the first games will be played of the new Major League Baseball season. And Monday, April 4th, is technically opening day. All teams will play on that date. In this video, I want to expand on my prediction from last season. Last year at this time during spring training, I predicted that the Mets would be in the 111th World Series. I thought they might also win it. Of course, that didn't pan out, but they did make it to the big game, the World Series. This year, I think I know exactly which two teams will be in the World Series in spring training and who will win between those two teams. In fact, I was just down in Las Vegas last week and I intended to bet on this, but I found that the odds were so low for the bet, it wasn't even worth placing. And, I'm not making my predictions based on the rosters, the skill level, what the experts are saying. I am making my predictions based on the language of gematria, which is what I have come to figure out is a key component in how the world of professional sports are rigged. So, for a little introduction, most baseball fans know a Major League Baseball season runs 162 games, and in gematria, Major League Baseball sums to 162. Of course, baseball is a game of 9 innings. 162 in numerology is 1 plus 6 plus 2 equals 9. Anyhow, last year was the 111th World Series, and only one city in gematria equals 111. That's New York. Of course, there's two teams in New York. There's the Yankees and there's the Mets. I specified last year why I thought the Mets would be in the World Series. I also thought there was a small opportunity for a Subway Series. Had that happened, it would have been the 15th time in history in the year 2015. A Subway Series is where two New York teams participate. Anyhow, the reason I narrowed it down to the Mets over the Yankees was for a number of reasons. But the Yankees have won 27 World Series to date. MLB in gematria equals 27 for Major League Baseball. This website doesn't do Pythagorean gematria, but if it did, you would see that baseball itself also has gematria of 27. Baseball's 27, MLB's 27. Again, another number with 9 numerology. 2 plus 7 equals 9. Plus, think about a baseball game. 9 innings, 3 outs per inning, 27 total outs. And for both teams, if it goes to the bottom of the ninth, 54 total outs. Baseball in simple English gematria sums to 54. Anyhow, out of all the cities in Major League Baseball, there's only one with a gematria of 112. This year's the 112th World Series. Houston equals 112. And this year, the Houston Astros are 54 years old, that number for baseball. We'll talk a little bit more about the Astros in a little bit. Also, notice there's a lot of Houston focus in sports championships this year. The college championship, the Final Four, which is going on right now, is being held in Houston. The upcoming Super Bowl, which will be on February 5th, 2017, that will be in Houston. Houston Texans in gematria sums to 51. They're hosting Super Bowl 51. Last year, San Francisco hosted Super Bowl 50. San Francisco equals 50. Anyhow, Houston equals 112. The last time Houston Astros were in a World Series, they were in the National League, and they faced the Chicago White Sox. I'm quite confident the Houston Astros will be there this year, playing the National League Chicago team, the Cubs, who haven't been to a World Series since 1945. Before we get more into this year's prediction, I want to talk about the way the 111th World Series closed out. The 111th World Series ended in New York on 11-1, 11/1, 111th World Series. Eric Hosmer started the rally in the bottom of the ninth, stepping to the plate with a 111 batting average. Hopefully you can make that out. When I saw that, a big grin went on my face. And on Matt Harvey's 111th pitch, he was going for the complete game. The first run was driven into the game for Kansas City, starting the rally that led to Kansas City's win and the end of the World Series. If you have not seen my work on last year's World Series, search my name, Zachary K. Hubbard, and just the phrase World Series. I did a video for every single game in the World Series, plus a whole lot more. It's just so scripted once you recognize it. And last year, as I was watching this myself, I was saying, how many people are watching this right now thinking it's the 111th World Series, it's 11-1, the 111th pitch just knocked in the first run of the game? For those of you who say, I don't see how you could script baseball, use your minds. Think. You have men, base coaches. You have men in the dugout. They're signaling with their hands, coded signatures that nobody's supposed to know what they mean except for the people on the team. There's a secret language being spoken at all times. How do you know that there isn't an agreement between teams? And on certain pitches, they're like, here comes the grooved pitch for you to drive in, such as what happened with Eric Hosmer on the 111th pitch with his 111 batting average in the 111th World Series on 11-1. I'm telling you, this is what's going on. This is what's going on. Before the World Series, I talked about how they were dropping these clues, these parallels that tied in with Super Bowl 47, which had the 33-minute blackout. And you might recall in Game 1 of the World Series with Matt Harvey, number 33 on the mound, there was a blackout with the Fox TV crew after the 47th pitch. When they came back from the break, however long it lasted, Joe Buck, a person I can't stand, he said, truck went out. He just said it just like that. Truck went out. Truck went out in gematria equals 47. This practice of gematria is a secret language, an esoteric practice by Freemasons, by Zionists, by the people who rule our media, who rule the entertainment industry. And they are taunting us with this language at all times, putting it before our eyes. And once you become aware of it, it's undeniable. Last night, Golden State Warriors' record home win streak ended at 54. Can you guess what Oracle equals? The Warriors play at Oracle. 54-game record home win streak ends at 54 at the Oracle. Like I said, the entire world of sports, scripted, by the numbers, undeniable. Now, what I will tell you is just because I'm making predictions, they're not always all the way correct. Usually when I miss, I barely miss. And the reason I miss sometimes is because I didn't decode enough. I didn't check out all the connections for all the teams. But I've been following baseball for a while. I'm going to show you more reasons why I think it will be Cubs and Astros this year, and I expect the Cubs to win. If you went to Vegas and wanted to bet on the Cubs to win the World Series, the best odds you're going to find are 2.5 to 1. Almost everyone has 2 to 1. Not a very good payout for betting before the season begins. The Astros to win the American League are 4 to 1. At some books, only 2 to 1. Again, not much of a bet. Not much of a bet at all for preseason. So I want to give you another example. I want you to understand this isn't all fun and games. The people who rig it are horrible people. Not only are they deceiving the masses, everybody pays all this money to go to these games that they think are real events, the best of the best. They don't realize they're watching a pre-planned theatrical show. Anyhow, this year, exactly 57 days after the World Series, Dave Henderson died. He died on December 27th, exactly 57 days after the conclusion of the World Series. And Dave Henderson finished his career with the Kansas City Royals, the team that won it. Not only did Dave Henderson play for the Kansas City Royals, he also played for the Boston Red Sox, who faced the Mets in the '86 World Series. Remember, last year's World Series was Kansas City and Mets. So Dave Henderson had connections to both teams. Then he dies 57 days after the World Series at age 57 and realized that World Series in gematria equals 57. And let me show you what's so special about this number 57 and why it's coded into the phrase World Series. This is a number that has to do with championship. If you write out 57, it sums to 131. If you write out championship, it sums to 131. If you write out Super Bowl, it sums to 131. Last year, when I was showing in October how the entire Super Bowl was synced up for the Broncos and Peyton Manning, ESPN put out this story about 57 kids from Indiana with the name Peyton, who've been named after Peyton Manning. And ESPN made that story exactly a minute 31 long. This is a very real practice. It's going on all the time. Once you recognize it, it's undeniable. The name Henderson for Dave Henderson also has gematria of 57. So RIP Dave Henderson. For you sports fans, my hope is that you never give another dollar to any of these sports leagues. You are investing in the sickest people who have ever lived. These Masons and Zionists who rule over us with deceit. Their tyranny, it goes way further than sports. My research didn't start with sports. I realized from researching other things how sports was intertwined, and my mind was very much blown when I found out. So now let's talk about the Astros, and then we'll talk about the Cubs. The Houston Astros were established in 62, 54 years ago. I should note that the word Mason equals 62, short for Freemason. Again, baseball equals 54, 54 outs in a complete game. Gematria of baseball the small way, 18 and 27. MLB, 27. New York Yankees hold the lead with 27 World Series. Do you know who the Astros open up against on opening day? The Yankees. And I think this is part of the foreshadowing that the Astros will be representing the American League in the World Series. Opening day tribute, playing against the most winningest team ever on 4-4. The manager of the Astros is A.J. Hinch, former player. Show you what's interesting about A.J. Hinch. His birthday is on May 15th. He will turn 42 years old. And his birthday is exactly 42 days after the start of the Major League Baseball season. 42 is a very important number to the Freemasons. A lot of times these sports championships are synced up with key individuals' birthdays. I've shown this countless times. The latest, most concrete example is what I showed with Peyton Manning and the last Super Bowl. How his birthday came 46 days after the Super Bowl. It's the 46th Super Bowl of the modern era. The only Super Bowl he'd ever won before this last year was against Chicago. Chicago equals 46. This year he faced Ron Rivera, who played on the 85 Chicago Bears, who won the Super Bowl 46-10 over the Patriots with the revolutionary 4-6 defense, plus a whole lot more. Anyhow, birthday equals 42, Freemason equals 42. His birthday comes 42 days after opening day. He'll be turning 42 years old. He also has a life lesson number of 41. He opens the season at age 41. 41's the 13th prime, another special number. But I don't want to get too far off the beaten path. But what lines up for the Astros is their current age and also what happened with them in the playoffs last year, which is a parallel with what happened with the Cubs, which we'll talk about in a little bit. Hinch was also made the manager of the Astros on September 29th, 2014. This was a date with a life lesson number of 54, like baseball, like how old the Astros are this year. All signs. All signs. And again, the last time the Astros were in the World Series, they faced a Chicago team. They faced the White Sox. They lost to the White Sox. I suspect this year the Astros will lose to the Cubs. The Astros recently switched from the National League to the American League. That's why this is possible. So last year in the playoffs, in the wild card game, it was Cubs and Pirates. The Cubs advanced. And in the American League, it was Astros and Yankees, and the Astros advanced. And here's what I caught. There are only two managers in the entire Major League that have name gematria of 106. Clinton Merrick Hurdle, who goes by Clint Hurdle of the Pirates, and Joseph Elliott Girardi, or Joe Girardi, the former player manager of the Yankees. 106 is a special number because it is the number of prophecy. Prophecy equals 106. I did several videos last year on the significance of 106. There's a lot of 106 history and no-hitters. I think a lot of histories and no-hitters in baseball history have been scripted. much to many fans' chagrin. Anyhow, these two teams, the Cubs and the Astros, advanced over the only managers with 106 gematria. They did it in the wild card round, and I think this was foreshadowing a future meeting of these two teams. And I think that meeting will be this year, a year where a lot more aligns. So hopefully you're following me there. Let's go through the Cubs now. Chicago Cubs, they have not won a World Series since 1908, 108 years ago. Some interesting things about Cubs. Cubs in gematria equals 45. The last World Series the Cubs were in was in the year 45. That was 71 years ago. Notice Chicago in simple English gematria equals 46. Chicago Cubs in Pythagorean gematria equals 46. Also 55. Chicago Cubs syncing up with the city. With regards to the span of 108 years, they're currently under the curse of the Billy Goat, as it's known. The phrase, "it's over," has a gematria of 108, and I suspect by the end of this season, this will be a headline. In fact, I think when the Cubs win the World Series, there will be headlines everywhere that say, "it's over." A lot of times when streaks end in sports, you see this phrase. Earlier this year, the Golden State Warriors had their winning streak snapped at 28 games by the Milwaukee Bucks. And the Warriors were chasing the streak of 33 that was ended 44 years earlier, the first year they ended up in Golden State. That streak of 33 from 44 years ago was also ended by the Milwaukee Bucks. And while we're at it, I'll just show you a little lesson here. Milwaukee Bucks equals 156. The Warriors streak was snapped at 28 by the Milwaukee Bucks. The Lakers streak from 44 years earlier was snapped at 33. Notice that 33, 28, and Milwaukee Bucks all have 156 in gematria. These are the only two numbers when written out that sum to 156. There's no others. They're often paired together in this study. Just more evidence of the sports scripting. The number 911 is the 156th prime number. And just so you know, Jerry West, who wore the number 44, he was on that Lakers team from 44 years ago. Jerry West wore 44. His name equals 44. He is the symbol of the NBA. Golden State Warriors in their 44th year of existence. Their first year, the year Jerry West set the record. Sports by the numbers. So many examples. Oh, but I forgot to make my point. Golden State Warriors in gematria equals 108. And when their streak was snapped at 28, all the headlines said, "it's over." Fitting. All right, so what else is there? Oh yeah, I should have mentioned that with regards to 45, like Cubs, like the last World Series they were in, "it's over" also sums to 45. Illinois also equals 45. It looks like I forgot to write it up here, but Illinois, the state that has the Cubs, Illinois equals 45. Notice that 2016 is a year with 9 numerology. So was 1908. Of course, there's been other years with 9 numerology, but that just stands out to me. 9, this very significant number in baseball. Talked about the significance of 162 games, numerology of 9, 27 outs, numerology of 9, MLB, baseball, all coming back to 9. Here we're going to look at the history of Chicago Cubs World Series. The first ever one they played in was 1906 against the Chicago White Sox. They lost. A lot of the sports leagues originate out of Chicago. First basketball team to be in a championship was the Philadelphia Warriors and the Chicago Stags. The original football teams in the NFL came out of Chicago. The Cardinals are one of those teams. They are now in Arizona. Chicago, a Masonic Zionist Mecca. So, first World Series, they lost 4-2, fitting Freemason equals 42, Freemason Mecca in Chicago, Chicago World Series. The next year, though, the Cubs represented and defeated the Tigers. And then they win again and defeated the Tigers yet again. Detroit, not too far from Chicago. Very regional matchups in the beginning. The next World Series they would go to was in 1910. They'd lose to the Philadelphia Athletics. They'd go again in 1918, lose to the Red Sox. Think about how Theo Epstein helped end the Red Sox curse, which lasted 86 years. The words symbol, triangle, and pyramid all equal 86. Symbolic number. Boston Red Sox symbolic baseball team. Anyway, Theo Epstein, who was with the Red Sox when that streak ended, is now with the Cubs. Imagine what a legend he'll be in the world of rig sports should the Cubs end their streak. And I suspect they will. Next World Series, 1929, Philadelphia Athletics again, 32 against the Yankees. Notice they're losing all these. 35 against the Tigers, 38 against the Yankees, 45 against the Tigers. The last World Series they were in, Illinois 45, Chicago Cubs 45. No coincidence the last World Series they were in was 1945. Despite having such a long drought, the Cubs are 8th all-time in World Series they've been in. Notice 2 wins, 8 losses. I suspect by the end of the season the tally will be 3-8, and they'll be tied with the Tigers for 11 appearances, but still behind them in terms of overall record. The manager of the Cubs is now Joe Maddon. Joe Maddon, currently 62 years old, fitting for facing the Astros, which were established in 62. His name in gematria, 72 and 81, the reflections of 18 and 27, the numbers for baseball. Joe Maddon, as he goes by, has gematria of 36, 2016, a year with a lot of 36, 666 connections. We'll get to that more later. Joe Maddon was hired November 2nd, 2014. What stands out to me about that date is the 11 for November and the 2. Remember, this year's the 112th World Series, 11/2, facing Houston, the only city that equals 112. The date he was hired, date with interesting numerology, date with 11 numerology, Cubs looking for their 11th World Series, also a date with 27 numerology connecting to MLB. Something strange that happened earlier this year is in one of my videos, I briefly talked about how I thought the next World Series, this was back in February, I talked about how the next World Series I thought would be the Astros and Cubs, and the very next day, ESPN put out an article saying those were the favorite teams to represent the World Series. And you have to remember, I have USA Today mocking me, I have Vice News mocking me, I have Black Sports Online mocking me for this research. You know, USA Today put out this hit piece on me after I predicted that the Super Bowl would be Broncos over Panthers, Von Miller would be the MVP, and there'd be a Black Panther tribute. Guess what? I nailed all those things. USA Today tried to make me look like a Looney Tune. Houston Astros in gematria, I didn't mention this earlier, sums to 51 and 78. The 51 stands out because, again, Houston is hosting Super Bowl 51 this year. Houston Texans equals 51. Whole lot of Houston focus in professional sports. All right, so the last World Series they were in, 1945, 71 years ago. On October 6th, this started. The Curse of the Billy Goat. With this famous image, we got Detroit's goat. Story of a man bringing his goat to the game, getting kicked out of the game, and the fan cursing the Cubs. A curse that still holds true until today. Now check this out. We got Detroit's goat, what they put on this goat for the picture, as well as Curse of the Billy Goat, which it's called, both have gematria of 223. And this is a special number to the Freemasons. Masonic equals 223 in Jewish gematria. So does the Synagogue of Satan, the name given to the false Jews in Revelation of the Bible. And the thing about Revelation of the Bible is you don't have to be a Christian to believe in what I'm saying. I'm not a Christian. The thing is, though, these Masons and these Zionists, they use the spiritual texts as a playbook, like their football coaches. And they take a lot of the riddles within it and apply them to everything from sports to news. When you learn the numbers of Revelation, you see how much they show up in the world of pro sports. Let me just show you Masonic real quick in Jewish gematria so you can see that it's 223 as well. Very special number to these people. And here this number is stamped on the curse of the billy goat. And, you know, I can't say it enough. Chicago is the Masonic Zionist capital of this nation. Right now, the mayor of Chicago is Ram Israel Emanuel, who's born on the anniversary date of the establishment of Israel. His name in gematria, let me just show you what his name is in gematria. Ram Emanuel, 666. And this number 223 is directly connected to 666. If you decode the verse in Revelation about the number 666, the number used to identify the beast, it decodes into 223. Again, this is a Masonic Zionist practice, coding these numbers religiously in so many of their things. The family that owns the Cub, Ricketts, a name with 33 gematria. We saw Donald Trump, this, stooge actor on the campaign trail saying he has all this dirt he could drop on the family that owns the Cubs. These billionaires, they probably all know what a big rig joke it is. And he probably knows that the Cubs have a scripted World Series coming for him. I wish he would tell it out. And don't take that as any endorsement for Donald Trump. The synagogue of Satan, again, equals 223. And the curse of the billy goat began October 6th, 1945. 10-6. I want to show you something about this. Remember how I talked about the teams that the Astros and Cubs advanced over last year in the wild card round? The only two managers with 106 gematria, the number of prophecy. Prophecy also has Jewish gematria of 666. All of these numbers come together. 223, 666, and more. Opening day this year is on April 4th. Show you this real quick. April 4th has gematria of 144, just like if you write out 44. And April 4th, the way the date is this year, has numerology of 44. What's interesting about April 4th, 44, the gematria of 144, is that if you take the first 144 decimal points of pi, the number having to do with cycles and circles. Think about sports, cycles, circles, seasons. If you add the first 144 decimal points of pi, it sums to 666. People often call the number 666 the mark of the beast. Mark of the beast equals 144. Our English language entirely coded out. All of this is the work of the Freemasons who believe in these principles, who use these principles, who've been doing this for a very long time. This year, I think the curse of the billy goat ends. And I should point out one more thing in regards to that number. It's been 71 years since they've been in a World Series. 44 and 71 are the only numbers when written out that have gematria of 144. So the span from 45 to this year also ties in to the puzzle. This article came out in February, the exact day after I talked about a Cubs and Astros World Series briefly in one of my videos. I think it was in the video where I was talking about the Hall of Fame game for the upcoming NFL season. But here's opening day tomorrow, April 4th. Show you what's funny about the games tomorrow on Sunday. The Mets and Royals are playing each other. This is typically the 93rd day of the year, April 3rd. It's a leap year, so it's the 94th day, but typically it's the 93rd day. Last year in Game 3, the only game that the Mets won, they won 9-3. And if you watch my preview video, I suggested the score might be just that. And the reason I predicted that is because everything in New York is coded 39 and 93. Very important numbers. Notice the Cubs also play against the Angels. Angels in the outfield. Cubs need a prayer to end this curse of the billy goat. I think these are all riddles, Truth Seeker. And for anyone who's a skeptic of my work, please visit all my other predictions. I'm not always right on the money, but when I miss, I barely miss. And I've nailed a lot of things that should be impossible to predict. I mean, who in the world have you ever heard call the Super Bowl months before it happened while saying who will be the MVP and that there will be a Black Panthers tribute? It's never been done before. And the only reason I can do it is because I figured out how they're doing this. And trust me, it's as mind blowing to me as it is to many of you, especially those of you who are just now watching this for the first time and have never seen my work before. But yeah, if you're a skeptic, I get it. Interesting stuff, but this kind of stuff's hard to deny. Major League Baseball, 162 game season. All right, Truth Seeker. I'll link all these posts. You can go through them if you want to review them yourself, share the information. Thanks for watching. Until next time.